Hello and welcome to the Daily Brown Bag. Today we are 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Daily Brown Bag. Today we're going to be asking ourselves the question of whether it's okay to outsource social media. Adam, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Chad. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Brown Bag. This is an interesting question. Is it okay to outsource social media? A lot of debate out there, and as social media has risen to prominence as an online digital marketing activity, the debate rage. And so I think, Chad, in an ideal world, it might be great if every business owner, particularly the small business owners, could write every blog post on their website and handle every social media interaction themselves. Why? Well, because they're the expert in their business. They started their business. They have the passion. It would probably produce the best content and the most authentic social media interaction. But we know that starting and running a small business is very time-consuming, and it's very difficult to both concentrate on the business and then have all these other social media outlets that you have to engage in. There was a very interesting piece that came out just recently, Chad, that sparked our idea to cover this topic again. It was an article from Business 2 Community this week called "Is Outsourcing Social Media Marketing Cheating?" And I think that's a very interesting premise, because there are definitely the purists out there who think if you outsource this, that is a sort of cheating. Well, we'll cut to the chase here. Obviously, our position is that it is not cheating, and in fact, given my background, Chad, the idea that outsourcing something should somehow be a negative is a little bit laughable. When I did a lot of work for General Electric, they prided themselves on using outsourced vendors who were best in class to achieve cost savings and efficiency. There's a whole industry called business process outsourcing, BPOs, in the HR space that's very common in shared services. So there is a rich history of this, but I think in the social media world and in the marketing world, maybe things are a little different. And I do think there's some cautionary tales here as you start to unwind this issue of when you do outsource, it doesn't mean you can just let go of control and never be involved. So I think the discussion today when it comes to outsourcing social media is where's the sweet spot and how do you need to stay involved?
Yeah, and I think that we have a nice checklist today to talk about this, but I agree with you 100%, Adam, that in every other industry, whether it's IT and you mentioned HR, and in many cases it's the right thing to do to outsource, because you're able to bring in specialized skills, economies of scale that are difficult to achieve. And just in a simple example, if you're a manager of a marketing department, keeping your team up to date and skilled on every type of marketing is very difficult. That's why agencies are around. But let's go through this, because I think what you do need is you do need a checklist and a path for the way that whether you decide to keep it on inside your company or whether you can outsource it, you need a plan. And the first thing you have to have is the quarterback, and that's the person who ultimately is the person setting the goals and managing the progress towards those goals. So there has to be a manager, and really that person becomes in some ways the business owner or the project manager of the social media. Next thing is you absolutely have to set goals. There's no way that you can have a successful social media program if you don't know what the goal is. And whether that's very easy to measure goals like metrics of how many followers you have and how many tweets you're putting out on a weekly basis, to things that are much more difficult to measure, like is my brand better off because of my social media, or how many leads am I getting from social media. You have to have those goals and you have to be able to measure them. Of course, if you have goals, you need to then have a regular meeting scheduled where you're reviewing those. So the idea, Adam, as you said, that you throw up a Facebook page and that it's going to magically just populate itself and be good is a fallacy. You need to have the goals, and you need to have a recurring meeting, whether that's weekly or monthly or quarterly, more likely probably weekly or monthly, to go through and make sure that you're on track. And then I think the final thing that we would say is that once you're doing that, you need to make sure that you are measuring the results and probably modifying the plan, because you may have expectations you start with that as you learn more and start measuring things aren't your goal is unattainable, or maybe it ends up being that you need a different goal. So don't be afraid to change your goals as you learn, but have a way of doing that and a time frame for doing that. So those are some tips, I think, for whether you, again, choose to have the member of your team internally or externally that you're going to need to put forward to make it work for you.
Yeah, an excellent list, Chad. And I think my former partners over at GE would be proud because a lot of those are the core tenets of Six Sigma, focusing on measurement. And I think, to answer the question and close up the brown bag today, should you outsource social media? Well, the answer is maybe. A very, very small business with someone who has time and passion could certainly do these things. But as businesses grow, it's very hard to stay on top of that. And if it means your social media is going to slide versus outsourcing it, but still maintaining control and these measurements, in the way that you've talked about, using some of these Six Sigma ideas so that the process still runs smoothly, is definitely the way to go.